All right, good afternoon, folks. Here is Kirk's Law Corner with special guest Scott Lauderbaugh. Thank you for joining us here today. And we got Dave Cantera sitting around in the back corner here. We're going to discuss Governor Abbott's declaration for that, well, to protect the border from foreign invasion. And I want to go over his document there and kind of put the law out there in support of what Governor Abbott is actually doing. So let's go over that document real quick as soon as I get back to that. I'm going to pop that sucker up right now. There it is. I'm going to do a screen share real quick. Okay. Hopefully everybody can see it. Everybody should be able to see this. This was put out the 24th. Governor Greg Abbott. The federal government has broken the compact between the United States and the states. The executive branch of the United States has a constitutional duty to enforce federal laws protecting states, including immigration laws on the books right now. President Biden has refused to enforce those laws and even violated them. The result is that he has smashed records for illegal immigration. Despite having been put on notice in a series of letters, one of which I delivered to him by hand, President Biden has ignored Texas's demand that he perform his constitutional duties. President Biden has violated his oath to faithfully execute immigration laws enacted by Congress. Instead of prosecuting immigrants for the federal crime of illegal entry, President Biden has sent his lawyers into federal courts to sue Texas for taking action to secure the border. Now, here's the issue. This is not a judicial argument. It's a political argument. So I'm going to expose the law and expose them for the fraud and evoke the maximum of law. A judge who exceeds his authority is not to be obeyed. So, Mr. Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, you do not have to obey that order because this is a political argument, not a judicial one. President Biden has instructed his agency to ignore federal statutes that mandate the detention of illegal immigrants. The effect is to illegally allow them en masse parole into the United States. Now, Governor Greg Abbott, you actually have the authority to arrest those people who want to interfere with what you're doing in Texas by defending against a foreign invasion. Anybody who interferes with that, you have the authority to arrest them. By wasting taxpayer dollars to tear open Texas border security infrastructure, President Biden has enticed illegal immigrants away from the 28 legal entry points along this state's southern border, bridges where nobody drowns, and into the dangerous waters of the Rio Grande. Again, you can arrest anybody who interferes with your lawful authority, who's in direct violation of the Constitution itself, the supreme law of the land. And anything that comes in conflict with the supreme law of the land is void for any effect. That is also stated in Article 6, Clause 2. The judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of a state to the contrary is notwithstanding. And then that's state-wise. And then Marbury versus Madison. Anything that comes in conflict with the supreme law of the land is void for any effect. So there's a case law that backs that up. So under President Biden's lawless border policies, see, we're talking policy now. Any policy that comes in conflict with the supreme law of the land is void for any effect. From its inception, the day it was created, it's void. So it's regardless of what happens there. More than 6 million illegal immigrants have crossed our southern border in just 3 years. That is more than the population of 33 different states in this country. Idaho, we only got like 1.8 million people. So that supersedes the total population of the state of Idaho. This illegal refusal to protect the states has inflicted unprecedented harm on the people all across the United States. Absolutely. I love this. James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and the other visionaries who wrote the U.S. Constitution foresaw that states should not be left to the mercy of a lawless president who does nothing to stop external threats like cartels smuggling millions of illegal immigrants across the border. That is why the framers included both Article 4, Section 4, which promises that federal government shall protect each state against invasion, and Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, which is what we're going to cover, which acknowledges the states' both sovereign interest in protecting their borders. Absolutely. Then he even cites a case law. Okay. The failure of the Biden administration to fulfill the duties imposed by Article 4, Section 4, has triggered Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, which reserves to this state the right of self-defense. Absolutely comes from the laws of nature. The New York State Rifle Pistol Association versus Bruin case, June of 2022. That's what they cited. They went clear back to the laws of nature, that the right of self-defense, even cited in Blackstone's Commentaries on Law of England, which is something I've been covering over the last 6 weeks on my Monday Night Laws, reading directly from Blackstone's Commentaries on the Law of England, these absolute rights, these three fundamental absolute rights. The very first absolute right is the right of personal security, or the liberty of personal security. So that's fundamental. I mean, it's an absolute right. And at the root of all law, that comes first. And anything that comes in conflict with that would be void for any effect, because then it's no longer an absolute right. So, all right. Let's see. To invoke Texas constitutional authority to defend and protect itself. Absolutely. That authority is the supreme law of the land and supersedes any federal statutes to the contrary. Perfect. Absolutely correct. The Texas National Guard, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and other Texas personnel are acting on that authority, as well as state law, to secure the Texas border. Congratulations to Governor Greg Abbott for following the supreme law of the land and knowing that any statute that comes in conflict with that is void for any effect. Your comments, Scott?
Did they, does that include the child sex trafficking and things of that nature too? That clause?
Oh, absolutely. Anything going on across that border.
Does it include all of that? I just want to make sure, because I saw a couple comments on there that he did not, or they were asking, American citizens were asking questions about it. So, seeing as you know a lot about this, figure that out.
It would have anything to do with anything crossing that border that's unlawful.
It did.
We could consider that consequential of apprehending illegal immigrants. This is a foreign invasion. This isn't immigration.
Right.
Some will say, "Oh, it's a migration." Well, migration is a mass amount of people moving from one place to another. We have laws that protect us from immigration. You want to become an American, you have to follow due process of law just like the rest of us. You have to apply. And you can be denied because, technically speaking, we don't allow just anybody to come in here. Many people aren't even aware of that. You have to qualify. You have to be a benefit. What's the benefit of admitting you as an American Union as an American citizen, or one of the people, or an inhabitant? Huh. So yeah, anything that would be consequential coming across that border, well, drug trafficking, human trafficking, any of that.
So I noticed what do we got now? 27 states that have sided with Texas.
I just saw some of that this morning. Yeah.
Yeah, and the ones that have not, what's the implications of that now? Now, with
I think
Pennsylvania, for instance, like my state.
I think it's just a matter of them deliberating over there what they want to do. They want to get on board with this or not. Mm-hmm. Sometimes these things take a little bit of time. So
yeah.
I think this is going to be so good because this needs to be done. And we need to round up all the other bad, people that have been unlawfully let in here. And then, we need to get into going to Congress for this. But so let's read what he's saying there, what the Constitution actually says in Article 1, Section 10 that Governor Abbott's actually citing. It's right here. No state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state, or with a foreign power, or engage in war. Here's the part of the clause. Unless actually invaded or in such imminent dangers, will not admit of delay. I think we're well past that, and as he had stated, he's already sent letters and tried to talk to, so-called President Biden about this, and they did nothing. So, it's there. They've been put on notice, which now we got to go back to Article 4, Section 4, because this is in part, and the second part of this, we're going to talk about the Military Accountability Project, and this applies equally there as well. This is law of the land, supreme law of the land, which is supreme due process of law. And this dictates the process. So the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government, and shall protect each of them against invasion. Now, here's the part that's been missed. And on application of the legislature or of the executive, when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence. That is internal insurrection. So we'll go into that, because this is where we're going to show Luther versus Borden. This is the C explanation. I'm on law.cornell.edu, one of my go-to websites on the Constitution. Let's go into this historical background on the guarantee of republican form of government. This is the annotated Constitution. This goes into, what the judicial branch has already discussed on this particular part of the Constitution. So Article 4, Section 4 is generally known as the Guarantee Clause. Through its terms, the United States makes three related assurances to the states. First, a guarantee of republican form of government. Okay? That's a key one that we'll get into later. But number 2, protection against foreign invasion. And they've been derelict in their duty. Upon request by a state, protection against internal insurrection or rebellion. That's the domestic violence. Most people are led to believe that domestic violence is about family issues. It's not. In fact, that's a subversion of law by Congress. You cannot redefine what domestic violence is as the founders wrote it in 1787, 1789. That in itself is actually domestic violence, internal insurrection. An earlier version of the Guarantee Clause was among the resolutions of the Virginia Plan introduced at the Constitutional Convention by Edmund Randolph and attributed it to James Madison. So that's exactly what Governor Abbott was talking about. The resolution went through several formulations during the debates at the convention. This was during 1787 through 1789. During a key debate, Governor Morris objected to the resolution because he should be very unwilling that such laws as exist in Rhode Island ought to be guaranteed. Randolph explained that rather than cementing the existing laws of the states, the resolution had two objects: to secure republican government, to suppress domestic commotions. This is the meaning behind Article 4, Section 4. Along with the concerns about rebellions, delegates expressed fears that a monarchy might arise in a particular state and establish a tyranny over the whole United States. Now, this is where we get into that military accountability stuff, is allowing the military personnel internal insurrection and saying, well, this is establishing the tyranny. We get to mandate to you have to take this vaccine. You don't have that authority. And what are we supposed to do? What's the remedy or due process? We're supposed to petition Congress. which is where I come in and where we're going to work together on this and do this properly in accordance with the letter of the law. The supreme law of the land dictates this process. We're going to follow that. So that's pretty much the key stuff to this. I want to get into the where's the Luther versus Borden, which is the next section here. And in Luther versus Borden, the Supreme Court in 1849 held that questions arising under the Guarantee Clause are generally political and not judicial in character. Okay? So there you have it right there. There's a case, Governor Abbott and all other governors that want to get on board with this. The judicial branch doesn't have what's called subject matter jurisdiction, which is exactly what the Brunson brothers were told starting in the district court in Utah. Told them 6 times they didn't have subject matter jurisdiction. Well, that's because that's actually pursuant to Article 4, Section 4, that this is a political argument, not a judicial one. And we get down into here. I don't want to go into that particular part. It doesn't really matter. Chief Justice Roger Taney held that the political branches of government and not the federal courts should decide such questions. It rests with Congress to decide what government has established one in a state as well as its Republican character. So that's part of the domestic violence part, but nonetheless it still establishes the principle of a political argument, not a judicial one, under Article 4, Section 4. So Luther further held that it rested with Congress to determine the proper means to fulfill the guarantee of protection to the states against insurrection. So it would still apply with foreign invasion. Although the court suggested that Congress might have empowered the judiciary to decide whether the federal government should intervene, Congress has instead authorized the president to call out the militia in case of insurrection against the state's government. It followed Chief Justice Taney that the president must of necessity decide which is the government and which party is unlawfully arrayed against before he can perform the duty imposed upon him by the act of Congress. This political determination is not subject to judicial review. Again, the judicial branch has no subject matter jurisdiction, period, at all. No authority at all. So in this instance, Governor Abbott needs to take what the Supreme Court has already done, submit that over to the president and say, hey, why is the judicial branch ruling on this and interfering? This is a political doctrine. Now we need to find out who's been afraid against. And I'll tell you what, technically speaking, every last one of them judges, from the district court to the circuit court to the Supreme Court, that's grounds for removal for duty for taking jurisdiction where you had no authority to take jurisdiction. That's Cohen versus Virginia. This is how serious this could turn into. We want to wipe out the bad actors in the judicial branch that all ruled on this and took this up without dismissing it right from the get-go, sua sponte, on the spot, for lack of subject matter jurisdiction. Now, the next one, this is great. During Reconstruction, the court, in Texas v. White, posited that the president's actions in establishing temporary state governments in the defeated Confederate states at the end of the Civil War was justified as an exercise of his powers as what? Commander-in-Chief. Now, some people might be aware of Derek Johnson out there, who's recently kind of come on the stage, and he's explained the same thing that I've talked about for years, is that there's a separation between presidential powers and commander-in-chief powers, right? President has a gubernatorial veto. He has a veto power over legislation from Congress. Now, commander-in-chief has power to defend, which this power is outside of the Constitution, even going clear back to 1553 with the creation of the Merchant Marines, which is the civil power, and the military is supposed to be subordinate to the civil power. But our military power, militia power, is outside of the Constitution and long antecedent to the Constitution, folks. So, Because the power to carry into effect the clause of guarantee is primarily a legislative power and resides in Congress. However, those arrangements were necessarily provisional. It was generally up to Congress to organize and recognize new Republican governments in these states. That's Article 4, Section 3. So, with all that being said, Texas, Governor Abbott, awesome job. Glad you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Other governors ought to fall in line and do the same damn thing. Arizona governor, California governor, New Mexico governor, all of the bordering states, and then including Washington, because the northern border, same thing. We got issues on the northern borders. So all the northern states, you can do the same thing.
Montana.
Over to you, Scott. What do you got?
I'm good. I mean, you're hit the nail on the head with everything. I mean, we saw a lot of the states that jumped on board, so I just had a couple questions about the ones that haven't come on board. So now we know the reasons for that, and hopefully in due time, we'll see them support Texas as well.
Now, the other half of that answer is, then we'll know which ones are corrupt, who have been bought off. And maybe we ought to do a full forensic audit on finances and find out who's getting outside money. These emoluments violations, unjust enrichments.
Follow the money.
Always follow the money.
Exactly.
Dave, do you have any comments?
Yes, if we're correctly, what happens in one state affects another state. So I forget where that is in one of the constitutions, maybe Virginia. I think you went over it, the Virginia Constitution or the Bill of Rights. What happens in one state affects all the other states. Because we are a confederation. I yield.
Thank you, Dave. Absolutely. That's part of one of the defects that was complained about in the Articles of Confederation is how do we this is a perfect example right here. Okay? This is the reason why they did what they did was to provide the protection. They had to figure out how to provide for the common defense here. When a border state is being invaded, they're like, well, this is not fair for an outlining border state and the people to defend all of the other states without support. And so they said, well, then we'll make it so that we're supposed to go to Congress. Congress is supposed to declare the war. We can get back into that real quick because that's actually what's needed to be covered here, actually, and I forgot about that. What is the powers of Congress under, pursuant to Article 4, Section 4, but what are the powers delegated? That's Article 1, Section 8. Okay? We get into what are the powers there? Here's one that a lot of people are not even aware of. To define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the law of nations. I've had so many people ask me about, well, where in the Constitution it says we're bound by the law of nations? Right there. Written by Emer D. Vattel. And the full title of the Law of Nations is the Law of Nations or the Principles of the Laws of Nature as applied to the conduct of nations. The next one. To declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on the land and water. Okay, right there, that is a power delegated to Congress. Then the next one is to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for longer term than 2 years. This is the key one. To provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. So this is the power of Congress. And again, the next part, to provide for organizing, arming, disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states respectively the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the disciplines prescribed by Congress. So, There, it's still left up to the states, which we already covered in Article 1, Section 10. That's a power that was retained by the states themselves. So, I'm not seeing a whole lot of comments over either on YouTube, Facebook, even in my...
So what is Congress waiting on then? If this letter has been sent out and they know the laws, what are they waiting on? You know.
Well, there should be a petition there, right? Got to follow due process of law. It's got to be in proper form, and it's got to do the right thing.
Everything starts with a petition.
Yep, absolutely. People are saying they're having a hard time hearing out there. I wonder if my audio got disconnected somehow.
One of my favorite phrases is talking about it. As soon as the words leave your mouth, it's a vapor and it dissipates. And things have to be in writing.
Hopefully that fixed the audio there. For some reason, my broadcasting software wasn't capturing your guys' audio. All right, go ahead. Say that again, Dave.
When you're talking about something, or whether you're complaining or just talking about it, everything that comes out of your mouth is a vapor, and it dissipates as soon as it comes out of your mouth. So that's why we have to use paper. We have to use, like you always say, the proper form.
Yeah, I know this is going to get into the spiritual realm of things, but when we write things out, we call it spelling. We cast our spell. And then we get into the prayer for relief. We're praying to God that it convicts the man's mind or woman's mind who reads the spell, right? And this isn't evil, right? But this is in the spiritual realm. And this is, we're dealing with our spirits, our souls. And it's about comprehension and then understanding. And so this is where due process of law comes in, is we have to follow that process that is due. And let these people read it and go, well, wait a minute, I'm charged with this duty because I've been hired, I've been employed, elected, whatever, into this position. I have a duty to perform here. And we have the power, we the people, because all political power is inherent in the people. We retain that power. This is our very distinct part of our form of government where the people retain their powers. And we get to instruct our public servants. See, they're not rulers, they're servants. And we are the masters. Now, some people, master, no. The difference between a slave and a servant is servants get paid. Slaves do not. They're not slaves. So don't talk down to them like there are slaves. There are servants. Just like McDonald's, the supervisor, whoever's in charge, hey, you're on fries today, blah, 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 blah. You don't talk down to them. You talk, on somewhat of an equal level. You're all on the same team. Sure, the supervisor might be in charge, but you're still on the same team to accomplish the same thing. And it's the same thing in military. We have a hierarchy and a ranking system in the military, and those of a lower rank are supposed to obey the orders of a higher rank. So that doesn't mean they're better than us. That's just the way hierarchy works. And we all work as a team. Yeah, I don't know about your guys' audio over there. It should have shared the audio.
Well, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm just talking about out there. Everybody
Yeah.
else should be good now. Because I was noticing that Dave's was a little bit low. But I fixed it in the broadcasting software, so it's picking Dave up just fine now, and I'm sure your audio was coming through fine.
Think so. Hope so.
Yep. We're peeking into the red there. All right. Any final comments on that before we move on to our other subject?
I'm good on my end. What about you, Dave?
Yeah, I'm good too.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. So I'm going to actually kind of open this up for Scott to talk about here, about this. Yeah, it's all on you, brother. No. Because you're more in the know on that stuff than I am. I mean, I've read through the Declaration for the Military Accountability. I personally have not signed that, but I have my own reasons behind that. I don't need to really sign that to say I want to take action. But I most certainly support the intent behind it, and the people coming together and let's follow due process of law here. And my intent is to either give options to military personnel that have been unlawfully separated from the military to either get back in and finish out your contract. And, they're in violation of the terms and conditions of the contract there. So it would be up to the military service members who have been unlawfully discharged to get back in, reinstate yourself, and also have a just compensation for the loss, for breach of contract, and receive all of your benefits, correct your DD 214 for an honorable discharge, unless you want to go back in, and receive all your veterans benefits that you would be due. And then hold those responsible for the actions they took against our military service members. So over to you, Scott. Let her rip.
Something needed to be done, because from the standpoint that everybody, and like I said, everyone has their own story and their own beliefs of what they were doing. But from the standpoint of everybody who submitted a religious accommodation, were denied. So how can you deny alienable rights, especially if there is a chapel on a base for every military installation, that there are services performed on Sundays for every denomination on Sundays, whether it be active duty or reserve bases or guard bases, and even overseas. And why are there chaplains? So what a lot of military members were coerced against their will. Me, for one, I've seen with my own eyes and saw it in real time. So I can only imagine what my other military brothers and sisters have went through, especially the ones that are standing up and fighting, as well as the ones who were coerced into getting the vaccine. So that being said, it's just been a wild ride. I'm glad and I'm blessed to be along with you guys and along with the 231 military members who have signed the declaration. I'm also blessed to be a part of all the 24,000 right now currently American citizens who have signed the petition, and growing. And I'm just thankful. I mean, this is where we're at. So that's kind of like where I've got to say about that part of this equation.
Dave, you got anything to add to that, or add what your own thoughts and opinions there are?
Well, I'm just so glad that the military stepped up, because we don't have any remedy unless we all stand together. And I'm so happy that I'm involved with the Children's Health Defense Fund and several groups, Medical Freedom, and we're all looking for a resolution. And when I started following you and learning what you were doing there, Kirk, I was very hopeful that we had a solution. But the key is getting everybody on board. So that's why I continually promote you on our space in the morning. We have an X space. We are the people. And I'm always pointing people to your library. So it's when we all stand together, including with the military. We want to stand beside the military in this effort. That's why I did sign the declaration. And I'm just so happy that we are all gathering together and we can promote the solution that you have. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you, brother. So this is the key behind this. Scott, you talked about your religious exemptions there, and this is something we discussed privately the other day. But the fact is what's the difference between consensual sex and rape?
You say no, it means no. So it's the same thing that goes with the vaccines and your health. Was what you and I talked about.
Yep. And the thing is the right of religion is liberty of conscience. The right to think for ourselves, which actually goes right back to the first absolute right of personal security. We get to determine what we put in our bodies. That's part of personal security. That right of self-defense to shun what may be harmful to us. And we have the right to say no. And when we say no, that's it. That's our conscience. We don't need some pastor or whatever to say, oh yeah, I'll approve that, and then send it up the chain of command for approval. There is no approval. You can't deny the right. And then we get into the fact that this was supposed to be for an emergency use authorization. Where was the full disclosure? Well, my understanding is that at first it was that, and there was a lot of military service members that were saying, no, I'm no thanks. And so they did away with the memo saying that they had to fully inform because they wanted more and more people getting vaccinated. And there's an evil purpose behind this, but the fact is viruses don't actually exist. So how did you make a vaccine for something that doesn't actually exist? And then how is it being said that it is a mandate? Now, a mandate actually comes from what's called a writ of mandamus from the judicial branch. Only judicial branch can issue writs of mandamus or mandates, which goes to a lower court for them to do a particular thing, or to kind of, in a sense, refrain from doing something, or to a public servant to discharge the duties of their office, or to cease from doing a particular action. Which, on the other flip side of that's called a writ of prohibition. But that's how a mandate works. Otherwise, here's my joke for this, a mandate is two guys going fishing, or when the Obamas go to a movie. That's a mandate. So, what needs to actually happen here is we need to do a petition to Congress to do an investigation. And they're going to have to, I'm already aware of the COVID-19 Fraud Committee, a committee on doing investigations for fraud related to COVID-19. Not the committee is a fraud, but so I want to clarify that. So there's already a committee there. I don't know if this could possibly go to that committee as a standing, or as a created committee at this particular point in time, or if they would create a new committee for an investigation for the military side. And then not only that, this will kick the door open for everybody else out there that was coerced into taking the vaccine, or you said no, tried to do a religious exemption, and you were denied, and then you decided to quit. Okay? This can also, we could bring those kinds of people in, maybe possibly a different petition, but this would still, this initial petition for military personnel will kick that door wide open, and let's blow this sucker wide open, folks. This was a hoax from the very beginning, and I have the evidence and proof of that already. So, what we need from military personnel, like what Scott's got over there, he's already got a stack of paperwork because he's got his evidence. So, perfect. In the basic start of all this is just basically an affidavit from every service member out there that was coerced into this or was discharged because you refused. Just a simple affidavit of who did what, where, and when. And we'll work from there, and we'll get into that. We discussed that the other night. That we'll come out with a video on that and do a little bit of training on how to write your affidavit. But for those that see this video right now and want to start getting prepared, maybe you already know how to write an affidavit, get her done. But we'll get that out there, where to send that stuff to. Brad is, I reached out to Brad Miller and tried to get him to come on, but of course he's just swamped. So I'm going to have to do a little pre-planning instead of impromptu here. But this has been on my mind since we talked the other day, and I'm just like, we got to get this going.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in doing the affidavits, learning how to write those. I think it's very important for all military members to get involved with something like this, because the whole time we've been fighting it in a different way, and that didn't seem to work. So now we're doing things the right way. So thanks to you for going through everything and in our meeting the other day and everything, and just the discussions and things of that nature. It's just been awesome. Very knowledgeable, and I'm looking forward to rocking and rolling and helping my military brothers and sisters where I can. And I'm glad for all of our, I want to call them the heavy pipe hitters in our part of our 231. I won't name any names, but they know who they are. But Brad Miller, definitely a good dude, and so is Rob Green and Mark Bashaw. I'll just name a few. But everybody that's been working together just been absolutely amazing, and no other place I'd rather be at right now than with those gentlemen and ladies, and you guys here too. So I appreciate everything.
Awesome, thank you, brother. Dave, over to you. Got any?
Yeah, I just want to say that the affidavit is, and I learned this from you. You have to follow the rules of evidence. The affidavit is not hard. Once I learned how to do those, it's very easy, because you're just telling basically a story. It's not hard, so I don't want anybody to think that that's a very onerous learning curve. It's not, and we do have to follow the rules of evidence, because we are a lawful body politic, and that's why we follow the rules of evidence. We're not criminals. We don't do things underhandedly. Everything's above board and public.
Absolutely. Essentially, you're in an affidavit. That's how you tell your story. And sometimes what I'd like to tell people is just write your whole story out. Go ahead, write it all out. And then what you do is you go back through and you get rid of all the fluff. It has to be narrowly construed, and break it down into individual statement of facts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's the 4 W's. Who, did what, where, and when. And make them short, clear, concise statements of facts, because if you make any kind of a statement within one statement of fact and it's not true, and it can be proven that it's not true, you lose that whole statement of fact. So less is more. So the shorter, the clearer, the better. And again, keep it simple, stupid. KISS. This really is very simple. It's hard in our minds, but once you understand how this is done, and like I said, we'll come out with a training video on how to write that affidavit. Even though I have in my educational series already how to do lawful notification letters and affidavits and that kind of stuff, I'm going to do a special one, and we'll just literally do one live, or have one already done by Scott or somebody else, and with their permission, we'll present that affidavit, and so people can actually literally see that sucker, and maybe even just do a document template, which, I mean, that's it right there. Some people just literally need to see it and to get it. So
I would definitely like to participate in doing that. I'd definitely like to do that. Not only will it help me to learn it, but it would help others to see, like you had stated, visually. And then there's people who learn different from books and things like that. I'm more of a doer, and I learn better that way. So I definitely would like to do that. A lot of the stuff that I have is probably already in it together, like all the other ones that I've done. as far as letters go. And like you said, just take the fluff out of it and get to the main points. And once I do that, if you want to take a look at it, we'll break it down, and then I'll jump in there and start knocking out a couple.
Awesome. That's it. That's what we need to
So
do. Go ahead, Dave.
let me just jump in there. The all the documentation that you've been accumulating all up to date is all going to be annexed to the affidavit as evidence. So all those letters that I hope everybody is saving, the letters they got from the military, from their employer, or whoever was doing the forcing of these vaccines and forcing them to do things against their will. As long as you have all that documentation, or if you can recover it, or even ask them to resend it to you, that's important, because you're going to need that to attach. They call it annexing to the affidavit.
Yep. Part of the appendix that would go with what's called a brief in support of the petition. So the petition is actually going to be really, really, really short. But the brief and the appendix is where all this stuff goes. And this brings up another point there is, take your paperwork and you put everything in a chronological order of things by date. And then you look at your first document. Well, you're going to have a name on there, so that's the who. You're going to have a date on there, so there's your when. And then did what is the title of the document. Okay, so you pull all that directly from the evidence that you actually have. Turn to the next one, make your next statement of fact. Turn to the next one, make your next statement of fact. So that can go a long ways to making them short, clear, concise statements of facts based on the evidence that you have. So that should help a lot right there. You just got to pull the information from the paperwork you already have. And like Dave just said, if you don't have that paperwork, do a request for your documents from the record. Get that stuff and get it compiled into a chronological order of things by date. And that's going to be attached as an appendix with your affidavit in a brief format, eventually, that will be in under the petition. So this may actually do the petition part first, start submitting some affidavits. You'll be called into Congress to testify, submit your evidence at that time to support the statements of facts in the affidavit. Now that they get that evidence to support that affidavit, they have a duty to perform here. And what this is essentially to accomplish here is weeding out the bad actors that were in the military to begin with. Then once we start weeding out the bad actors, then we can start reinstating good actors, the people, military service members that were unlawfully discharged. If you so choose you want to get back in, you have every right to get back in, because that's a contract. So they were in breach of contract and you're due your back pay. So like if you were demoted a rank, or multiple ranks, you can get all that back. Everything that they've done that was unlawful in retaliation can be reinstated, can be reversed. Any other thoughts over there, Scott?
The only thing I got to say is that I got a lot of stuff here, but I mean, in my personal situation, it was like, I think they owe me like 16 months back pay and points from when I was submitting to the IRR. So I'm definitely going to submit, even though I have other things other irons in the fire. I'm definitely going to do one and submit it. Absolutely.
Right.
So
Awesome.
it's been crazy, but like I said, standing strong. We got everybody on board. Everybody's supporting each other. It's been amazing. Like I said, we're blessed. I mean, God has definitely brought us all together. And you talk about spiritual, and I could definitely, state as a fact that this is a spiritual ride for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, if we don't, it's our republic if we can keep it. And our republic was founded on the fundamental principle of religious freedom, Many people aren't aware of the history, even clear back to the Magna Carta 1215, this religious separation from the Roman Catholic Church and the ideology of Catholicism, and wanting the ideology of Christianity where man is free. Man is endowed by our Creator with sovereignty. So, sovereign citizen, no, sovereign man. Because God is the sovereign. And God created mankind. What kind of man are you? A man or man with a womb? So many people have a hard time defining what a womb man is, but it's really simple. It's man with a womb. So, in the spiritual realm of things, yes, we have this right, and we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Declaration of Independence. And we are supposed to assume the powers of the earth and the laws of nature and nature's God. So that is one of the ideological conflicts between Catholicism and Christianity. Now, our declared religion is declared in this nation called America, is declared in the Virginia Declaration of Rights, June 12, 1776, when the new nation, America, was created. When we separated with the Lee's Resolution, June 3rd, 1776, separating all political bands with Great Britain, you have a new start. You have to declare your religion for your ideology for a nation. Many people aren't even aware of that. But Christianity was declared as our ideology. And then the first Constitution, which is actually June 29th, 1776, which is the Virginia Constitution, and then the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776. All four of them documents go together. And I would encourage people to read those, because once you read them all together, you have a bigger picture and a bigger understanding of what the real law is for the nation called America as it was declared, laid down. Declarations lay down the law. And the Constitution that ordains or establishes our initial Republican form of government. It creates the three distinct branches of government, which many of the other states adopted until they created their own. But many of the states, total of 7, was created out of the territory of Virginia, because Virginia was the first settlement to begin with, starting clear back with the first Charter of Virginia of 1606. So a lot of people do not understand the true, real, lawful history of America to begin with. So, but that's in part what I teach. It's in my educational series on my YouTube channel there. For those that want to get into that stuff, you'll just go to my website, kirkslawcorner.com, and I have links to all of my social media in the top left-hand corner now, including Twitter, or X, which I'm live on there right now. We're live right now in five different places. I've got X, Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, and Telegram. So
Awesome.
All right, final thoughts, gentlemen.
For me,
Yeah, Kirk,
go ahead, Dave.
all right. So I think what we should probably do is, you're well versed in this, Kirk. The maximum law with fraud vitiate everything that comes from it. I think that's an important key that I think we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, even like U.S. versus Throckmorton. It's the leading case on that stuff is, fraud vitiates everything from its inception, void ab initio. In U.S. versus Throckmorton, it's a case that was 10 years old when and here's the key phrase, recently discovered this fraud. So it can be 10 years down the road when you recently discover this fraud. It doesn't matter. So I want to encourage everybody out there, especially our military service members, but everybody in general, about what I was talking about is it's going to kick these doors wide open about this hoax. And we need to hammer this down, and we need to make sure this never happens again, which it's kind of raising its ugly head again right now. So this is prime time to do this. We can nip this all in the butt right now so we don't end up with some sort of interference with, the elections coming up. We'll just nip this in the butt right now. Anything else, Dave, before we go over to Scott for final thoughts?
No, I think we covered quite a bit. We gave a lot of things for people to think about. A learning path for them. Like again, Kirk's YouTube channel. There's plenty of videos there to research just a little bit more. I spent a lot of hours online, and if you're going to get involved, you're going to have to spend some time on this to understand the idiosyncrasies of how we do this. But I guarantee that Kirk will be able to lead you through it and answer pretty much all your questions. Thank you, Kirk.
Thank you, Dave. Over to you, Scott.
All right. Thanks, Kirk, for everything. Thanks for having me on. The only last thing I got to say is calling for everybody that's been watching here on this show is to jump on, militaryaccountability.com or .net and sign the petition and stand alongside your military members that have stood up and wrote this declaration for military accountability. And thanks so much for everybody.
Can you say that one more time, please, for the
Yeah, absolutely.
website?
It's militaryaccountability.net, or you could use .com. Either one will take you to it.
Okay. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, sir.
All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and please share the crap out of all this on whatever platform you're on and want to share. Again, it's right now. It's on X. It's on YouTube. It's on Rumble. It's on Facebook. It's on Telegram, which it's not actually like staying on Telegram, but I will share a link to Rumble on my Telegram, and you have links too as well. So we'll get this stuff shared out there, and let's get this spread like wildfire, folks. Now is the time.
Yes, sir. Thank you again.
God bless everybody out there. Let's get her done. Have a wonderful day.
Too.
Thanks for being here, brothers.
Thank you, sir.